Welcome, welcome, welcome to the deep dive. I'm truly thrilled you're joining us today. We've got what promises to be a really crucial deep dive into some of the world's most significant recent developments. Forget wading through, endless news feeds. We've done the heavy
Yeah.
lifting for you. We've sifted through a pretty substantial stack of global news. I mean, everything from these high-stakes geopolitical summits that could, well, fundamentally reshape alliances
Big stuff, yeah.
to groundbreaking scientific discoveries that are quite literally changing how we understand the universe
Hmm.
and even our own bodies. And some pretty complex societal shifts
Yeah.
challenging communities all around the globe. Our mission, as always, is to give you that shortcut, that way in, to being truly well-informed. We're extracting the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight from, well, all these sources we've looked at.
Hmm.
We're going to navigate through varied perspectives, aiming for those aha
Hmm.
moments, without the information overload that can just bury you sometimes.
Right, it can feel overwhelming.
So, okay, let's unpack this.
Absolutely. And to unpack it effectively, we've meticulously structured this deep dive. We want to connect the seemingly disparate dots across these, well, quite diverse topics. Our aim is really to provide the crucial context you need, so you can understand not just what is happening, but maybe more importantly, why it matters, and what the broader implications might be for all of us, really.
Yeah, ripple effects.
Exactly. From the intricate dance of international diplomacy, which we'll get into,
Mhm.
to these sort of silent revolutions unfolding in science labs, and of course, the very human stories of resilience and challenge. We're going to explore how these events interlink and ultimately shape our collective future.
All right, let's jump right into it then. The heart of global diplomacy. Because this past week has been, well, absolutely pivotal, especially concerning the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. We've seen a real whirlwind of high-stakes meetings over in Washington, D.C. in the U.S., bringing together U.S. President Donald Trump, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and a whole host of influential Western European leaders. We're talking French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz,
Right? Key players.
and even UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer was there.
These gatherings, particularly at the White House, they really provided a critical and, I think, urgent platform, especially for President Zelensky. With the conflict now entering its fourth year since Russia's full-scale invasion back in February 2022,
4 years already. Wow.
it's hard to believe. There's an immense, really palpable urgency for him to advocate for continued, robust Western support. And the discussions, they didn't just touch on immediate strategies for Ukraine's defense, the battlefield stuff. They also delved into the long-term prospects for its security, its sovereignty, and crucially, what a lasting peace might actually look like, if it's even possible right now.
And here's where it gets, well, I found this really interesting. Because President Trump seemed to play a very central, almost orchestrating role in initiating and facilitating these talks.
He was definitely driving it.
Yeah. We even had what was described as a hot mic moment.
Yeah.
Those moments they don't think are being recorded.
Oh, yeah.
Where he indicated Russian President Vladimir Putin's willingness to negotiate a deal directly with Trump himself.
That's a huge development, if true.
Right. A truly significant revelation. And Trump apparently confirmed that arrangements are now underway for a direct face-to-face meeting between Zelensky and Putin. This isn't just like facilitating. It feels like an active push for direct dialogue. Quite different from what we've seen for a while.
It is different.
So what does this kind of strategic gamble here mean, for the long-term relevance of the more established, maybe slower EU-led efforts in this conflict?
Well, that's really the core question, isn't it? And it signals, I think, a profound shift. Trump's engagement appears to be a calculated disruption,
Right.
a pivot, maybe, away from those European Union-led approaches we've seen. It emphasizes a more transactional, perhaps direct engagement with the main parties involved, Moscow, Kiev, Washington. While it might, and this is a big might, accelerate some kind of deal, it definitely risks alienating key European allies who feel sidelined.
Sure, you can see that.
And it centralizes the power dynamics quite significantly around, well, Trump himself. This could potentially set a precedent where multilateralism, group efforts, get sidelined for these direct bilateral transactions. That could reshape the very architecture of how we approach global crisis resolution in the future. And it raises serious questions about whether a lasting lasting, globally recognized peace can actually be achieved through such a centralized, almost personality-driven approach. It signals a very complex interplay of interests, different leaders trying to steer the conversation towards their own preferred outcomes for what peace means.
Yeah, peace can mean very different things to different people in this context.
Absolutely.
Now, okay, beyond the high-level pronouncements and those hot mic moments, it's often the subtle signals, isn't it, that carry immense weight in diplomacy. The little things.
Nonverbal communication, yeah. It's crucial.
And this past week, one of the most talked about signals wasn't even a policy shift. It was President Zelensky's choice of attire. He appeared in a military-style black suit jacket for the Oval Office meeting in Washington.
Ah, yes, I saw the picture.
Very notable departure from his usual, the casual military-style olive green tops he's worn almost constantly. Talk about dressing for success. Or maybe dressing for a better meeting, perhaps.
Slight chuckle. Well, it was without a doubt a conscious diplomatic maneuver. There's history here. White House officials had reportedly, let's say, expressed concerns in the past about him not adhering to more formal attire during previous visits.
Right, I remember hearing something about that. Caused a bit of friction.
It did. So this attire shift, and apparently UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer might have advised him on this.
Oh, interesting.
It was seen as a strategic move by Zelensky to bolster rapport, specifically with President Trump and the U.S. administration. It wasn't just about looking sharp, It was about signaling a willingness to adapt diplomatically, to project a certain gravitas, maybe, respect for the formal setting of the Oval Office.
Playing the game a bit more, perhaps.
Precisely. These are intricate, nonverbal communications that often accompany these high-level diplomatic engagements. It speaks volumes, really, about the delicate balance he's trying to strike, projecting both wartime leadership and diplomatic readiness.
Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty then. The actual peace proposals, or at least the ideas being floated. And it becomes clear pretty quickly there's a pretty wide divide on how to actually achieve peace, what the first step should be.
A fundamental disagreement, yeah.
President Trump, for his part, he emphasized that a ceasefire stopping the fighting might not even be a prerequisite for achieving peace. He seems focused on lasting peace agreements, saying he's resolved conflicts before without ceasefires, like get straight to the core issues.
Right. His argument is sort of, why pause the fighting if you haven't agreed on the final terms? Get the deal done first. But in stark contrast, you have European leaders like France's Macron and Germany's Merz. They stressed the absolute necessity of a ceasefire first as a prerequisite for any meaningful negotiations.
Their view being you can't talk seriously while bombs are falling.
Exactly. How can you negotiate effectively under active bombardment? That's their perspective. And Moscow, interestingly, has also expressed opposition to temporary truces. They seem to view them not as genuine opportunities for peace, but more as chances for Ukraine to regroup and rearm, essentially, strengthen its military position.
So everyone has different reasons for either wanting or not wanting a ceasefire first.
Pretty much. And this raises that important question we touched on. Can a lasting peace truly be built on such fundamental disagreements over the very first step, the initial condition for talks? For some, like the Europeans, it's about cessation of hostilities first, quiet the guns, then talk. For others, like maybe Trump and potentially Putin from different angles, it's about reshaping the geopolitical map entirely, and the ceasefire is secondary to that. These are deeply philosophical and strategic divides. It makes a unified approach incredibly challenging.
And then there's the long-standing, incredibly sensitive question of Ukraine's NATO aspirations and their security guarantees.
Always a sticking point, a major one.
President Trump stated, apparently, quite unequivocally, that Ukraine will not be allowed to join NATO. Full stop.
Wow.
That's a pretty definitive statement. Cuts through a lot of the previous ambiguity, doesn't it?
It really does. That's a clear line in the sand from his perspective. However, he did commit, reportedly, to providing strong protection and security from the United States, including what he termed Article 5-like protection. Now, Article 5 is NATO's collective defense principle. An attack on one is an attack on all.
Right, the core of NATO.
But crucially, Trump specified this would be without American troops on the ground in Ukraine.
Okay, so protection, but not NATO membership, and not U.S. boots on the ground.
That seems to be the formula being proposed. Ukraine has, of course, long sought these kinds of NATO-like assurances, ironclad security guarantees, and some European states have even offered peacekeeping troops in the past, though that's also highly contentious.
Because Russia.
Exactly, because Russia, through Kremlin spokeswoman Maria Zakharova, has been equally unequivocal. They consider any presence of NATO troops in Ukraine completely unacceptable, and they warn it could escalate things dramatically, even towards global conflict.
So it's a real tightrope walk, isn't it? Trying to provide security without triggering that massive escalation.
It's threading a very fine needle between deterrence and direct confrontation. Extremely delicate.
And the territorial concessions. I mean, this is where it gets really, really thorny and, frankly, heartbreaking for many Ukrainians.
This is the toughest part, arguably.
President Trump proposed conditions for a peace deal that would involve Ukraine renouncing those NATO aspirations we just talked about
Okay.
and recognizing Crimea, which Russia annexed back in 2014, as part of Russia.
Yeah.
And he explicitly stated, apparently, that he would not entertain the return of Crimea to Ukraine. Full stop.
That's a huge demand, a non-starter for Kyiv under, well, any previous circumstances.
Exactly. But here's another twist. While President Zelensky had previously very firmly opposed any territorial concessions, citing Ukraine's constitution,
Which enshrines territorial integrity, yes.
he has now acknowledged, according to reports, that territory exchanges are, quote, on the agenda for discussions.
That is a significant shift, a major, perhaps painful adaptation of Ukraine's negotiating stance.
Seems like it. Likely influenced by the sheer desperation, perhaps, to secure any kind of peace deal or maybe pressure from Washington.
Could be both. It's a reflection of the harsh realities on the ground, potentially. But you still have figures like German Chancellor Merz insisting Ukraine must not concede any territory. He compared it to asking the U.S. to give up Florida, apparently, to really underscore the Western European perspective on sovereignty and territorial integrity.
A stark comparison.
Meanwhile, President Putin reiterated his long-held position. A settlement hinges on resolving what Moscow sees as the root causes, which for him means Ukraine abandoning NATO aspirations and recognizing regions that, in Moscow's view, voted to join Russia, like Crimea and parts of the Donbass in eastern Ukraine.
Right, the areas Russia currently occupies or controls.
Precisely. So the Donbass region, much like Crimea, has become this critical fault line. It symbolizes not just Ukraine's territorial integrity, but these broader geopolitical battles playing out.
It really feels like a clash between a nation's sovereign right to its own borders and the geopolitical demands of powerful neighbors.
That's a very good way to put it. It makes genuine compromise incredibly difficult when the starting positions are so far apart on such fundamental issues.
So if we pull back the curtain a bit on this whole diplomatic dance, beyond the public statements, the photo ops, the visible negotiations, discussions also included things like securing further U.S. support, navigating these really sensitive strategies to keep aid flowing,
The practicalities.
and ensuring bipartisan backing in the U.S. Congress, because that's crucial for long-term support.
Absolutely. It's not just about the leaders agreeing. It's about the deep, often messy political work behind the scenes to make it stick.
And this political work, it sounds like it's complicated by several underlying factors.
It is. A significant concern, apparently raised particularly by Moscow, but potentially relevant more broadly, is President Zelensky's legal authority to make binding agreements.
Why is that?
Well, his presidential term has officially lapsed. Elections haven't been held and are currently prohibited under martial law in Ukraine.
Okay.
So Moscow challenges his legitimacy as a signatory to any lasting peace deal. They argue he doesn't have the constitutional mandate anymore. Now, whether that's just a negotiating tactic or a genuine legal challenge that could undermine any agreement, well, that remains to be seen.
But it adds another layer of complexity.
Definitely. And furthermore, there's the domestic political context in the U.S. President Trump's current approval rating, according to recent polls, stands around 40%, which is reportedly the lowest of his current term. And, perhaps relevant to these talks, 54% of polled Americans apparently feel he's too closely aligned with Russia.
That context must hang over these diplomatic efforts.
Undoubtedly. It potentially limits his diplomatic wiggle room, how far he can push certain things. And it shapes how any proposed deals are received by the American public, by Congress, and by international allies.
Yeah.
The interplay of domestic politics with these high-stakes global diplomacy efforts, it's always a very delicate balancing act. Hashtag inter-European tensions and energy geopolitics.
Okay, moving slightly away from the core peace talks, but still very much related. We also saw some inter-European tensions flaring up, especially concerning energy geopolitics, always a sensitive point.
Particularly in Europe, yes.
The Hungarian foreign minister, Peter Szijjártó, he publicly accused Ukraine of jeopardizing Hungary's energy security.
Yeah.
How? by attacking the Druzhba pipeline, which is a major pipeline carrying Russian oil to Hungary through Ukraine.
Right, the friendship pipeline, ironically named.
Knuckles.
Yeah.
This isn't just a minor squabble, is it? It highlights a pretty deep fracture within European solidarity on the Russia issue.
It absolutely does. Hungary, under Prime Minister Orban, has consistently maintained closer ties with Moscow than most other EU members, largely due to energy dependence. And they went so far as to threaten to cut off power supply to Ukraine in retaliation for this alleged pipeline attack.
Wow. Okay, tit for tat.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicle, or UAV drone forces, claim they did disable the pipeline, but at the Nikolskoye pumping station, which is actually inside Russia, in the Tambov region, not within Ukraine.
Ah, so they're saying they hit it, but on Russian soil, not Ukrainian soil where it affects Hungary directly.
That seems to be the claim. Either way, the incident starkly highlights Hungary's significant dependence on Russian oil, a dependence that really colors its entire foreign policy. And it exacerbates its already strained relations with Ukraine, which partly stem from long-standing issues over alleged discrimination against the Hungarian ethnic minority living in Western Ukraine.
So there's history there, too.
Oh, yes. Deep history. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this energy dispute isn't just about oil pipelines. It's really about the deep fractures within European solidarity, especially when national energy security is perceived to be at risk.
National interest trumps unity sometimes.
It often does. It underscores how deeply intertwined energy, national interest, and geopolitical alignment truly are, even within a seemingly unified bloc like the European Union. #, the human cost on the front lines.
And while all these leaders are negotiating the grand strategies of peace and war, energy flows, diplomatic attire, the human cost on the front lines in Ukraine, it just continues to mount. Quietly, tragically, day after day.
It's easy to forget amidst the headlines, but it's the grim reality.
We heard from a UN aid worker, Victoria Tuchunik, who is herself a victim of the crisis, displaced by the war. And she describes truly perilous conditions for humanitarians trying to help the, over 3.7 million internally displaced people inside Ukraine.
And staggering number. And the dire needs are just immense and multifaceted. We're talking basic food, medicine, crucial psychological support after trauma, legal aid for lost documents or property. The list goes on.
Just surviving.
Pretty much. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, that's the UNHCR, they've been instrumental. They facilitated the evacuation of over 192,000 people from dangerous areas, provided critical assistance. But despite constant threats, drone attacks, aerial bombardment, these aid workers, like Victoria, demonstrate incredible resilience and commitment.
It's humbling, really.
Her words resonated quite deeply with me. She said, "If I can bring them hope, it fills my life with some meaning."
Wow.
And you have to remember, many of these displaced individuals fled their homes with literally nothing. No documents, no resources. This escalates their needs even further, and the humanitarian crisis just persists with no immediate end in sight.
It's a powerful testament to the human spirit, absolutely.
But also a stark reminder and a call to sustained international attention and support for those most vulnerable people caught in the middle of this geopolitical storm.
Now, this shift we talked about in global diplomacy, particularly the one perhaps catalyzed by the proposed Trump-Putin summit, maybe even the one reportedly planned for Alaska.
Right, that potential meeting.
It seems to have broader geopolitical echoes.
Yeah.
Beyond just Europe and the U.S.
Oh, definitely. The ripples spread far.
It's seen by many, apparently, as a significant shift away from the European Union's influence, with Russia managing to maintain, maybe even expand, its influence through new partnerships, particularly noticeable in parts of Africa.
Yes. Russian diplomatic and security engagements in Africa have certainly increased.
And this, quite interestingly, contrasts with what some perceive as diminishing respect for European leaders in some of those same regions.
Well, from the perspective of some African nations, this potential shift isn't necessarily seen as negative. For some, it's perceived as a pathway maybe towards greater autonomy, towards the realization of a truly multipolar world.
Where they're not just tied to the West.
Exactly. A world where nations aren't solely dependent on established Western powers, but can forge partnerships across a wider spectrum with Russia, with China, with others. This pursuit of a more balanced global order, theoretically, gives African nations more leverage, more flexibility in their foreign policy.
Makes sense. Meanwhile, shifting continents over in Asia. We've seen North Korean leader Kim Jong-un vowing to speed up his nation's nuclear buildup.
Not surprising, but still worrying.
His stated reason: in response to ongoing U.S.-South Korea military drills. The annual exercise is known as Ulki Freedom Shield, which he calls, predictably, a direct threat and a provocation.
Standard rhetoric from Pyongyang, but the actions back it up.
Yeah, he even personally inspected a nuclear-capable warship, the Cho-Haeun, at Nampo Port near Pyongyang, North Korea's capital.
Sending a very clear signal.
It's not just talk. He's demonstrating capability and intent.
Indeed. And analysts, frankly, are highly skeptical of Pyongyang making any positive response to de-escalation attempts right now, given this trajectory. The estimates suggest North Korea may already possess enough fissile material, the stuff you need for bombs, for up to 90 warheads.
90, wow.
With maybe 50 already assembled. Now, these are estimates, intelligence estimates, but they point to a significant arsenal. This acceleration of nuclear capabilities underscores a highly volatile and unpredictable security environment on the Korean peninsula. It complicates any diplomatic efforts towards denuclearization immensely.
And it just raises regional tensions even higher.
Absolutely. It's just another stark reminder of how interconnected these various geopolitical flashpoints really are. What happens in Ukraine can have echoes in Asia and vice versa.
All right, let's pivot now. From the intense world of geopolitics to the, well, equally fascinating and maybe slightly more hopeful realm of science and innovation.
A welcome shift sometimes.
We have some truly incredible breakthroughs to talk about here, starting with something that sounds like a revolution in chemistry. The shape-shifting catalyst. I mean, that sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Chuckles. It's remarkably close to that, actually. This is genuinely groundbreaking research. It comes from scientists at the Politecnico di Milano over in Italy. They've created a highly versatile single-atom catalyst designed for green chemistry, which means, cleaner, more efficient chemical processes.
Single-atom catalyst. What's the shape-shifting part?
Right, so it's based on atomic palladium. And what's truly fascinating here is its ability to adapt its chemical activity based on its environment. Like a chameleon, it can essentially switch its catalytic functions, the job it does between doing bioreactions, which are crucial for biological processes, and doing carbon-carbon coupling, which is fundamental for creating new molecules like plastics or pharmaceuticals.
And it just switches between these jobs. How?
Simply by altering the reaction conditions around it. Maybe changing the solvent or the temperature slightly.
That's amazing. So it's like having a chemical Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
Able to do fundamentally different jobs on demand.
That's a great analogy.
For better, cleaner production. This isn't just some lab curiosity then. This could fundamentally change how we make so many things. Pharmaceuticals, sustainable fuels.
Precisely. That's the potential here. This unprecedented flexibility significantly enhances efficiency. It promotes cleaner industrial processes, and it could drastically reduce energy consumption compared to traditional methods, which are often more resource-intensive and wasteful.
Less waste is always good.
Definitely. It also boasts remarkable stability and recyclability, which means it minimizes environmental impacts, further less chemical waste, fewer hazardous materials needed. And it was an international collaboration, too, involving universities not just in Italy, but also the Czech Republic, Austria, and South Korea.
Shows how science works best, right?
Yeah.
Collaboration.
It truly underscores the global, collaborative nature of scientific progress, especially in areas like sustainable chemistry. This offers a tangible path towards a greener industrial future. Really exciting stuff.
Okay, next up, another potentially massive leap forward, this time in the fight against cancer. An experimental mRNA vaccine has actually eliminated tumors in mice.
Yes, this caught my eye too. Really promising results.
And it's doing something quite different, it seems, from previous, more targeted approaches we've heard about with mRNA cancer vaccines.
It is a different strategy, yes.
The idea of a universal vaccine against cancer, I mean, that's a truly profound prospect, isn't it?
It is, the dream of many researchers. And this is a remarkable success story published in the journal Nature Biomedical Engineering by a team at the University of Florida in the U.S. What's unique, as you said, is that this mRNA vaccine doesn't target specific proteins found only on the tumors, which is how many current cancer therapies, including some personalized mRNA vaccines, work.
Right, they're tailored to the individual's cancer.
Exactly. Instead, this one works by sort of invigorating the immune system universally, almost like teaching it to fight a common viral infection, but directing that amplified power towards cancer cells in general.
How does it do that? How does it direct it?
Well, the focus is on stimulating something called PD-L1 expression in the tumors themselves. Now, PD-L1 is a protein that cancer cells often use to hide from the immune system. It essentially acts like a don't eat me signal.
Okay, so making more the don't eat me signal sounds bad.
Paradoxically, no. By making the signal more pronounced using the vaccine, it seems to make the tumors, ironically, more visible and more vulnerable to attack from the body's own defenses, particularly when combined with existing immunotherapy drugs called checkpoint inhibitors. It's like waving a giant red flag that the immune system, already primed, can then target more effectively, and it might even work independently sometimes.
That's fascinating, counterintuitive almost. But if personalized mRNA vaccines have already shown some efficacy in human trials,
They have, yes, promising early results in some cancers.
what are the biggest hurdles then to scaling this universal approach?
Hmm.
Is it just about refining the formulations, getting the delivery right?
Good question.
Or are there more fundamental biological challenges to making something truly universal for a disease as diverse as cancer?
That's really the critical question, and it speaks to the immense complexity of cancer itself. While personalized mRNA vaccines tailor treatment to an individual's specific tumor mutations, the challenge with a truly universal vaccine lies in overcoming the huge genetic diversity of cancer cells, not just between different patients, but even within a single tumor.
Right, tumors aren't uniform.
Not at all. So it's not just about refining formulations, although that's definitely a key step for things like delivery and stability of the mRNA. There are fundamental biological challenges, like ensuring the immune response is strong enough to actually eliminate established tumors, but also specific enough to avoid dangerous autoimmune reactions where the immune system attacks healthy tissue.
A fine balance.
A very fine balance. And designing a vaccine that can bypass the numerous clever ways cancer cells evolve to evade detection by the immune system. But this research is incredibly promising because it shifts the paradigm. It moves towards broadly activating the body's own defenses across a wider spectrum of cancers.
So less about specific targets, more about general activation.
Exactly. But scaling it to human trials for diverse cancer types will involve really rigorous testing and a much deeper understanding of the varied tumor microenvironments. The research team, reportedly, is now focused on exactly that, refining their formulations and taking the necessary steps towards eventual human clinical trials. Still early days, but very exciting.
Absolutely. Okay, bringing our focus back down to Earth, our understanding of the planet's ecosystems is deepening, thanks to updates from the Global Ecosystem Dynamics Investigation. That's GEDI science team meeting.
Ah, yes, GEDI, an important NASA mission.
This is basically about taking the pulse of our planet's forests from space,
Right.
using lasers.
Exactly. GEDI is an instrument mounted on the International Space Station, the ISS. It uses LiDAR, essentially laser pulses, to create detailed 3D maps of forest structure. The GEDI science team meeting, held back in April 2025, reviewed the mission's status. Good news. The instrument was successfully reactivated after a period of hibernation on the station.
Oh, good. It's working again.
And it's achieving impressive operational results. There have been significant increases in the amount of footprint data, that's the laser measurements, and derived biomass data being collected. This data is absolutely crucial for enhancing our understanding of Earth's ecosystems, particularly forest structure, how much carbon they store, things like that.
Which is vital for climate modeling.
Absolutely vital. The findings from this mission are improving the quality of the data we have and also its applications. For everything from analyzing vegetation structure changes over time to informing wildfire management strategies by mapping fuel loads. Discussions are already underway for future GDI data products and collaborations, with new data sets anticipated later in 2025.
So it's providing a much clearer picture.
A much clearer, three-dimensional picture of one of our planet's most vital natural resources. It's making substantial contributions to understanding global climate dynamics and informing more effective forest management practices worldwide.
From Earth's forests, let's look way out to the cosmos again. There's some incredible news involving the Devil Comet that could, well, rewrite our understanding of where Earth's water came from.
Ah, Comet 12 P. Ponsbrooks. Yes, this is fascinating.
So the water in your coffee this morning,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even the water you're drinking right now,
Mm-hmm.
might literally have arrived here aboard a Devil Comet billions of years ago. Slight chuckle.
Chuckles.
Yeah.
It does make you rethink your morning brew, doesn't it? It's a cosmic spin on it.
Totally. But okay, beyond our coffee cups, how does this finding impact our search for water and maybe life on other planets, other celestial bodies?
That's the bigger implication, absolutely. Look, observations of Comet 12 P. Ponsbrooks, nicknamed the Devil Comet because of some horn-like shapes seen in its coma. These observations have provided really strong evidence supporting a long-held theory that comets were major delivery vehicles for water to early Earth.
No.
How did they find this? By utilizing the ATACMS, a large millimeter submillimeter array that's ALMA, a powerful telescope array in Chile.
Hmm.
In combination with resources from NASA, the U.S. National Aeronautics and Space Administration, researchers were able to detect significant amounts of water ice, H2O, locked within the comet's structure.
So direct evidence of water ice.
Direct, compelling evidence. This finding powerfully reinforces the hypothesis that during Earth's chaotic early formation, billions of years ago, comets bombarding the young planet could have contributed a significant portion of the water needed to create oceans, lakes, rivers, basically, a habitable environment.
Seeding the planet with water.
Effectively, yes. Seeding our planet. This research not only sheds light on the origins of Earth's water, which is fundamental to life as we know it, but it also enhances our understanding of comets themselves, their composition, and their role in the solar system's evolution.
And the implications for finding life elsewhere.
Well, if comets are reliable water carriers throughout stellar systems, and we have evidence they are, it significantly expands the number of potentially habitable exoplanets we might discover out there, because if water delivery via comets is a common process, then potentially rocky planets in the habitable zone of other stars might have received water too.
Makes the odds better.
It impacts how and where we search for extraterrestrial life, as liquid water is considered a fundamental prerequisite. It suggests water might be more common in the universe than we previously assumed.
Amazing. And finally, for this science section, let's come back to our own past. New fossil discoveries in Ethiopia, Africa, are apparently challenging what we thought we knew about human evolution.
Ethiopia, the cradle of humankind, always yielding new clues.
These old assumptions keep getting shaken up, don't they?
Absolutely. That's the nature of science. New evidence leads to revised understanding. Recent discoveries of ancient hominin teeth from fossil sites in Ethiopia are providing significant new insights into our evolutionary history. What's important here is that these findings seem to challenge previous understandings of our ancestors' dietary habits and how they adapted to their environment.
How so? What did the teeth show?
Well, the specific wear patterns, the microscopic scratches, and the overall structure of these teeth indicate a wider range of foods were consumed by these early hominins than previously thought. They weren't just eating, say, soft fruits, maybe tougher vegetation, perhaps even meat, earlier or more frequently than assumed.
Okay.
This suggests that environmental pressures, maybe climate change forcing them to exploit new food sources, likely played a much larger role than previously appreciated in influencing the evolution of distinct human traits. Things like our dental structure, maybe even brain development, which requires high-energy food, and possibly even early migration patterns out of Africa.
So diet drove evolution more strongly.
That seems to be the implication. This crucial information is prompting a fundamental reevaluation of the human evolution timeline and those migration patterns. And it highlights Ethiopia's continued critical role as a place where we unearth these pivotal clues about our own origins.
All right, let's keep looking upwards and outwards. Time to venture beyond our planet again. Some exciting updates from the world of space exploration. First up, we get to meet, well, not meet exactly, but hear about a real-life spacewalk storyteller, a NASA capsule communicator. You know, the Capcom?
Ah, Capcom, the crucial link.
That calm voice here in the astronaut's ear, guiding them, making sure everything goes to plan up there. It sounds like such a cool job.
It's incredibly high pressure, but yes, fundamentally cool. We're talking about Tess Caswell. She's a capsule communicator, or Capcom for NASA, based at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas, USA. And she's currently leading communication for the Artemis campaign.
Artemis, that's the big moon return program.
Exactly. Returning humans to the moon, establishing a sustainable presence there. Her role as Capcom is absolutely critical, ensuring astronauts receive vital information, instructions, updates, especially in challenging high-pressure situations. Think spacewalks, complex docking maneuvers, system malfunctions. She's the lifeline.
Must require nerves of steel.
Absolutely. Calm under pressure is key. She has 8 years of experience at NASA and also spent time working at Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' space company. She emphasizes the profoundly collaborative nature of space missions. It's never just one person. And she strongly encourages young people, young aspirants, to consider the myriad of diverse roles in the space industry. It's not just about being an astronaut or an engineer, she says. There are roles in communication, medicine, biology, logistics, programming.
It takes a village to go to space.
Pretty much. Her point is that passion and a wide range of skill sets are crucial for success, not just technical ones. Her most cherished memory, she shared, was the moment she was officially certified to communicate directly with space crews. That feeling of responsibility and trust.
It's incredible to think about the people behind those voices, isn't it?
Yeah.
Guiding astronauts through these monumental feats literally hundreds of miles above us.
It really is a vital, often unseen part of the team.
And speaking of space activity, the International Space Station, the ISS, it's always a hive of activity up there, constantly needing to be restocked. Supplies, scientific experiments. It's like a floating city and lab.
It requires constant logistical support, and SpaceX is a key player in that.
They just launched another mission, right?
That's right. NASA and SpaceX launched the Dragon spacecraft on its 33rd commercial resupply mission, CRS-33 they call it, heading to the ISS. It launched on August 24, 2025 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, USA. This particular mission is carrying over 5,000 pounds, that's over 2,200 kilograms of supplies, and a whole host of crucial scientific experiments.
What kind of science?
Well, the manifest includes studies looking into bone loss prevention in microgravity, always a big issue for astronauts on long flights. Also, experiments advancing 3D printed medical implants. Imagine printing a custom implant right there in space if needed.
Wow, that could be revolutionary. For space and here on Earth.
Exactly. Potential for both space medicine and terrestrial healthcare. This mission also carries components for something called a reboost demonstration, which is basically testing ways to help maintain the ISS's altitude. It's constantly slowly falling due to atmospheric drag, so it needs periodic boosts.
Right. Keeping the lights on, the center.
Keeping it in orbit. These resupply missions, they play a foundational role, not just keeping the current crew supplied, but enabling the ongoing research that paves the way for future space exploration, including those Artemis missions to the moon and eventually potential human missions to Mars. It's a relentless, absolutely essential effort to keep science moving forward in orbit.
And speaking of ambitious missions and SpaceX, their colossal Starship rocket, the really big one, it's getting ready for its next leap, its next test flight after some previous setbacks, explosions, basically.
Chuckles, yes. Rapid unscheduled disassemblies, as they sometimes call them. It's part of their iterative testing process.
This is their vehicle for those future Moon and Mars missions, right? So getting it right is incredibly important for their big vision.
It is absolutely paramount to their long-term goals. The good news for them is that SpaceX has now completed its internal investigation into the recent Starship rocket failures during Flight 9. They've identified the issues, implemented corrective actions, and crucially, the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, the U.S. regulator, has also closed its investigation into the Flight 9 mishap.
So they have the green light.
They have the regulatory green light. The FAA has officially cleared Starship Flight 10 for launch.
That's big news for them.
Huge. This progress is absolutely crucial for refining the Starship program, which, as you noted, is integral to the company's plans for landing NASA astronauts on the moon under the Artemis program and their ultimate goal of sending humans to Mars. The goal here isn't just about launching successfully once. It's about rigorously testing, learning from failures, and enhancing reliability and safety for truly ambitious, long-duration space travel, paving the way for, well, human expansion into the solar system, as Elon Musk envisions it.
High stakes indeed. Now, it's not just about what's in space or what's going to space. It's also about managing the wildlife around space facilities here on Earth. Specifically mentioned was NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. That seems like a unique, maybe unexpected challenge for a space agency.
It's a fascinating and often overlooked aspect of running these large operational centers. Max Strausser, he's a senior biologist at NASA's Johnson Space Center, has been there since 2012. And his responsibility is managing the wildlife on the sprawling campus down there in Houston.
What kind of wildlife?
All sorts. His role ensures the coexistence of hundreds of local species, everything from geckos and snakes to large mammals like deer with the center's critical operations, mission control, astronaut training facilities.
I'm making sure a deer doesn't wander onto a runway or something.
Exactly. Or that nesting birds don't interfere with critical equipment. He implements comprehensive wildlife management plans. He conducts detailed population assessments counting animals, tracking movements, and actively mitigates any wildlife-related issues that might impact operations. He even uses small unmanned aircraft systems, drones, for wildlife surveys and inspecting infrastructure.
Using space-age tech to manage earthbound critters.
Chuckles. Precisely. It highlights this really interesting intersection of wildlife management and conservation with NASA's broader mission, especially as the Artemis program ramps up its activities, potentially increasing the operational tempo at places like Johnson Space Center. It just demonstrates that even as we push the boundaries of space exploration, we still need a deep respect for and understanding of our own planet's ecosystems right here at home. Hashtag tag economic currents and corporate shifts.
All right, let's ground ourselves firmly back on Earth now. Time to delve into the economic currents and corporate shifts making headlines around the world.
Okay, back to dollars and cents, or
Okay.
pounds and pence, euros.
Exactly. Starting with a big one. The ongoing labor dispute that's really grounding Air Canada. This isn't just about delayed flights and frustrated travelers, is it? It feels like a significant moment for labor rights in a crucial industry.
It really is shaping up that way. Air Canada is facing a major strike involving around 10,000 cabin crew members. And complicating matters, the Canada Industrial Relations Board, the CRB, that's the independent federal body in Canada that oversees these kinds of labor relations disputes.
Okay.
They've actually deemed this strike illegal because the union defied a back-to-work order issued by the board.
So the board says go back, the union says no, high stakes.
Very high stakes. The cabin crew members, represented by their union, are advocating strongly for higher wages. And, a key point, compensation for ground time. Currently, they argue, they aren't paid for significant portions of time spent on duty, but not in the air, like during passenger boarding.
That seems like a reasonable point if you're required to be there working.
That's their argument. They emphasize that the proposed wage increases from the company don't adequately address recent inflation, which has hit everyone's wallets. And they say the pay structure doesn't align with minimum wage standard for all the hours they're actually required to be working.
So what does this all mean for the traveler? Well, obviously, a lot of headaches, canceled flights, delays.
Massive disruption.
But also, as you said, it's a really fascinating look at labor rights playing out in a vital, very visible industry.
It is. And adding another layer, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has even publicly supported the crew's calls for equitable compensation, which puts pressure on the airline.
Okay, so political backing for the workers. How's Air Canada coping?
Well, financially, it's hitting them hard. They've had to suspend their financial guidance for upcoming quarters because operations are just severely impacted right during the peak summer travel season. This is when they typically transport around 130,000 passengers daily.
Ouch, that's a lot of lost revenue.
Huge impact. They've had to cancel over 2,500 flights so far. And predictably, their stock shares dropped almost 3%.
Did they make an offer?
They did. Air Canada's offer was reportedly a 38% pay increase phased in over 4 years, with a significant chunk, 25%, in the first year. But the union rejected that as inadequate. Not enough to cover inflation and address the ground time issue, they say.
So it's a standoff.
Very much so. And this situation powerfully highlights that ongoing tension we see everywhere between corporate operational needs and worker demands for fair compensation. Especially in this high inflation environment we've been in, the Canadian government, while expressing support for fair pay, seems hesitant to impose really heavy-handed measures like forcing them back to work legislatively, partly because of past Supreme Court of Canada rulings that strongly protect the right to strike as part of collective bargaining rights.
So complex legal landscape, too.
Very. It underscores the complexities of labor law in Canada and that delicate balance required, ensuring economic stability for key industries, while also ensuring fair treatment and rights for workers. It's really a classic example of an industry grappling with the evolving landscape of labor relations in sort of a post-pandemic world where worker expectations have maybe shifted.
I definitely want to watch. Okay, shifting from labor disputes to major investments in tech titans. SoftBank, the big Japanese investment group, has made a significant move involving Intel, the U.S. semiconductor giant.
Yes, a major investment announced.
This sounds like a pretty strong vote of confidence in Intel, doesn't it? They've had some challenges competing lately.
It certainly reads that way. SoftBank Group announced a substantial $2 billion investment in Intel Corporation. This is seen as a strategic move by SoftBank, aiming to bolster Intel's presence and competitive edge in the highly dynamic, incredibly competitive technology sector.
SoftBank is known for big bets on tech.
They are indeed. It reflects SoftBank's ongoing commitment to supporting what they see as key technology companies and emerging technologies that will shape the future. For Intel, this provides crucial capital, money they can use for continued innovation, for building new fabs, fabrication plants, for product expansion, all necessary to compete fiercely in the semiconductor industry against rivals like TSMC, Samsung, AMD, Nvidia.
Right, it's a tough neighborhood.
Extremely. So this investment positions Intel better to capitalize on the ongoing transformations in the global semiconductor market, particularly as demand for advanced chips just keeps growing exponentially, driven by AI, data centers, autonomous vehicles, everything really.
Good timing for Intel, perhaps. Okay, meanwhile, switching sectors entirely. The global property market, particularly in Hong Kong, it seems to be definitely cooling off, seeing some pretty significant drops.
Yes, that's quite a notable downturn. Hong Kong's prime residential property market, we're talking the high-end stuff, saw a very significant 14.3% year-on-year price drop in the second quarter of 2023.
14%, that's steep.
It is. That places Hong Kong right at the bottom of a global ranking of 46 major cities, tracked by, I believe, Knight Frank. And globally, the average annual price growth across those 46 cities has slowed right down to just 2.3%. So a general cooling, but Hong Kong is seeing a much sharper decline.
What's driving the drop in Hong Kong specifically?
Several factors seem to be contributing. One is delayed interest rate cuts globally, but particularly impacting Hong Kong's linked rates. This means prolonged high financing costs for potential buyers. Mortgages are expensive. Plus, there are ongoing economic uncertainties, both locally within Hong Kong and regionally, related to mainland China's economy and geopolitical tensions.
So a mix of local and global factors.
Exactly. And while some other cities, Seoul in South Korea, Tokyo in Japan, and Dubai in the United Arab Emirates were mentioned as examples, are still showing strong price increases. A significant rebound in Hong Kong is considered unlikely in the latter half of this year, despite other underlying factors like wealth creation happening in other sectors.
Shows how specific property markets can react very differently.
Absolutely. It highlights how localized factors, things like government policy, local economic sentiment, supply levels, combined with those global economic headwinds like interest rates, can profoundly impact specific property markets quite differently.
Okay, now for a bit of media makeover magic, maybe. MSNBC, the prominent U.S. television network known for its generally liberal-leaning perspective, is rebranding.
A new name and look, yes.
Slight chuckle. Of goodbye to the iconic NBC peacock logo. Hello to MSN Now.
MSN Now W, standing for My Source News Opinion World.
My Source News Opinion World. Okay. You know, sometimes a new name just, I don't know, clears the air, right? Tries to signal a change.
Chuckles, or tries to, indeed. MSNBC is rebranding as MSNOW, and significantly, this is part of its corporate separation from its parent, NBC News, which is why they're removing that iconic NBC Peacock logo, which has been synonymous with the network and NBC overall for decades.
So cutting the cord visually from NBC News, why?
Well, the network's president, Rebecca Cutler, emphasized that this move is about evolution, while importantly stressing they intend to maintain their current editorial stance. So not a change in political leaning, they say.
Okay.
This coincides with NBC Universal's broader corporate restructuring. They're spinning off various cable networks, including MSNBC and Now W, into a new separate entity, which is apparently going to be called Versant.
Versant. Okay, corporate shuffles. Does it mean anything editorially?
Well, Rachel Maddow, perhaps their most prominent host, she noted publicly that this separation has the potential benefit of no longer having to compete directly for resources with NBC News, allowing MSNW, theoretically, to set its own priorities, maybe pursue different types of content or investigations.
Interesting internal dynamic.
Could be. Joe Scarborough, another well-known host there, he unveiled a sporty new logo for MSNOW. Strategically, this rebranding, this separation, it may serve as a move to try and distance the network, at least visually and corporately, from the increasingly common claims of partisanship leveled against cable news generally.
While keeping the audience they have.
Exactly. While aiming to retain its core liberal viewership. It's an attempt, perhaps, to redefine its identity in a very crowded, often highly polarized media landscape, aiming for a new direction that maybe prioritizes unique content and projects a perceived greater independence, even if the core viewpoint remains similar. Time will tell how it plays out.
Always interesting to watch media branding shifts. Now, over to the world of energy policy and consumer costs. New Jersey, the state in the northeastern U.S., seems to be in a notable standoff with something called PJM interconnection.
PJM, yes, they're a huge player in the U.S. electricity grid.
What is PJM exactly?
PJM Interconnection is what's known as a Regional Transmission Organization, or RTO. They manage the high-voltage electricity grid and coordinate the wholesale electricity market for a massive area covering 13 states, plus the District of Columbia, primarily in the Mid-Atlantic and parts of the Midwest U.S., affects millions of people.
Got it. So what's the standoff about?
Well, New Jersey's governor, Phil Murphy, initiated some significant reforms demanding greater transparency from PJM. This came after New Jersey residents experienced a staggering 20% electricity price surge, which the governor's office blamed on what they termed a problematic capacity auction run by PJM.
20% jump. Ouch. People would notice that. What's a capacity auction?
Okay, so very simply, capacity markets are mechanisms used by grid operators like PJM. Utilities are required to procure commitments from power plants guaranteeing they'll be available to produce electricity years into the future. PJM runs auctions to determine the price paid for these capacity commitments. The idea is to ensure grid reliability at the lowest cost.
But New Jersey says it wasn't low cost this time.
Exactly. They argue the auction resulted in excessively high prices. So, new state legislation in New Jersey has now been mandated. It requires an investigation into PJM's capacity market structure and rules. And quite significantly, it forces the disclosure of how electric utilities operating in New Jersey actually voted within PJM's complex governance structure on issues affecting these market rules.
Pulling back the curtain on how decisions get made.
That's the goal. Critics in New Jersey, including the governor, argue that these PJM auctions, supposedly designed to ensure a sufficient power supply at competitive prices, have actually failed to lower costs for consumers. And perhaps more concerningly from an environmental perspective, they argue the auction rules have actively delayed the integration of cleaner energy sources like wind and solar into the grid, because those sources sometimes struggle to meet the specific requirements of the capacity market as currently designed.
So it's about price and the clean energy transition.
Both. This push aims to empower consumers, give them insight into utility decisions that directly affect their wallets. And it directly challenges the governance structures within PJM, which critics claim potentially allow for market manipulation or undue influence by large, established energy players, often fossil fuel generators.
This really raises a big question, doesn't it? How do we balance market efficiency, which is what these capacity auctions are supposed to achieve, with the urgent need for equitable access to clean energy?
It's the million-dollar question in energy policy right now.
Especially when transparency seems to be lacking in the very mechanisms that determine pricing and grid access.
Precisely. And the environmental and social impact here is significant. If the market structure delays renewable energy deployment, it perpetuates reliance on fossil fuels, which directly exacerbates climate change and its consequences.
And the price hikes.
The price hikes disproportionately affect low-income populations who spend a larger percentage of their income on energy bills. This highlights that critical intersection of climate policy, economic justice, and social equity. New Jersey's push for these reforms, it really reflects a broader national, even global dialogue about creating a fairer, more transparent, and ultimately cleaner energy landscape. It's a microcosm of a much larger debate.
Definitely complex. Okay, finally in this section, a quick look at some significant economic reforms and evolving trade relations over in India.
Right. India's economy is always undergoing dynamic changes.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi introduced a major goods and services tax, or GST, reform. What's the goal there?
This was a massive undertaking. The goal was to simplify India's notoriously complex, multi-layered, multi-rate indirect tax structure. Before GST, you had different taxes levied by central and state governments, VAT, excise duty, service tax. It was a maze.
Sounds confusing for businesses.
Hugely. So the aim of the unified GST is ambitious. Make goods cheaper for consumers by eliminating cascading taxes, enhance tax compliance by making it simpler and digitally tracked, and ultimately boost overall economic activity by creating a single national market. This reform is expected to alleviate significant financial burdens, particularly on businesses, and simplify tax collection for the government nationwide. It's still being fine-tuned, but it was a landmark reform.
And on the trade front, something happening with China.
Yes. Interestingly, China has apparently assured India it will address various economic issues between the two countries, including the crucial trade of things like rare earth minerals essential for electronics and green tech.
Right. China dominates that market.
Yeah, they do. Also, fertilizers and specialized equipment like tunnel boring machines, which India needs for infrastructure projects. This assurance came during a visit by Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi to India, aimed at strengthening bilateral relations. He actively called for partnership over adversarial relations, which is notable given recent border tensions between the two giants.
Context matters there.
Absolutely. China had previously imposed restrictions on rare earth exports, which hit countries like India. So easing this is significant. It seems both nations are now actively seeking enhanced cooperation, maybe partly driven by increasing U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods, pushing China to diversify markets.
And India is seeing an opportunity.
Perhaps. It contributes potentially to fostering that multipolar world order we talked about earlier, where economic power and partnerships are more widely distributed beyond just the U.S.-China dynamic.